All right, so now we have Regina here, who is an educator, and I'll let her introduce herself.
Salutations. My name is Regina Frazier. I am a current Doctor of Philosophy student at Virginia Commonwealth University, and I've worked in education for the majority of my career in pre-K through 12 atmospheres in the public school system, and I am reaching out into higher ed in my doctoral studies and in my career.
Thank you for taking the time to speak with me today.
Absolutely, Sarah.
So let's talk about mental health teachers in the building and like the level of respect that teachers get.
Oh my gosh. Well, just as a society, we don't necessarily respect our teachers the way they should be respected. And a lot of times we don't realize how much work they do. When we say it takes a village, it truly takes a village to raise our children. And you need a licensed professional to fill those like academic gaps. We're not all educators. We don't know the theory of reading, mathematics, deep into algebra. We need specialists to teach our students these things. And it's just unfortunate that we don't support our teachers the way that we do and give them the respect that they deserve. Sometimes we just need to give our teachers grace. And a lot of us were able to be humbled and experience that during the pandemic when some of us were in third grade for 180 days virtually. Some of us were in high school for 180 days virtually for 2 years. We found that sense of, wow, this is what they do. Wow, this is what they deal with. This is the things that they have to juggle. So that was really eye-opening for some people, but unfortunately, we still don't support our teachers when they call and say, hey, can we get some more Kleenex for the classroom? Can we get some toothpicks for a project? We're quick to say no. And, those are little things that make a difference in the job. So it's unfortunate. In other countries, really, we see that they have that respect for teachers, that they support them, and it makes a difference with the climate and culture of the job.
I like it sometimes parents see teachers as like a babysitter. You got that 6 hours out and I can do whatever I want to do. So I think the respect aspect is important. I know my little brother, we get the message. We do need Kleenex or hand sanitizer. Sometimes it's like, well, why the other parents can't get it? But it's like you never look at the bigger picture of it. So I'm glad that you brought that up. So this data that speaks to the influence of Black teachers in the public education system. Yet we're losing so many due to their need to take care of themselves and leave toxic environments. So what are your thoughts on that?
Oh, wow. So particularly my thoughts about African American educators, particularly special education educators that are Black, they are better for all students. The research shows, the research is clear that African American teachers are better for all students, students with and without disabilities, students that are black, brown, yellow, on grade level, above grade level, behind grade level. Just, they're all excellent for all of our students in educating them. And that's typically just for a multitude of reasons, but we know that the data shows that they're better. Tell me the second part of your question.
It was just saying that we're losing so many teachers due to them having to take care of themselves and leave toxic environments.
Yeah, I would say that's all teachers are leaving due to toxic environments. I know we're talking specifically about mental health. When you think about the needs of our students, the needs of our students are greater in rural areas because they're disadvantaged, and you can't but not think that impacts the mental health of the teachers and them being able to step away from the compounding issues in addition to that classroom that they need to deal with.
Okay, all right. So let's talk about mental health and its impact on retention of teachers. Do you think that kind of coincides? Okay, it does kind of fall into what you were just talking about. But I think when it comes to mental health of teachers, we're dealing with so many different things. We have social media. We got kids on the phone all the time. We got, peer pressure. We have, all these different stipulations that come along with it. So what are your thoughts on like the retention aspect of it?
Well, like we touched on before, we have millions of African American adults in the United States with a disability. And we know that our students are more likely to be placed in a correctional facility. They're more likely to be they're more likely to not complete high school.
Right.
And there are so many factors compounding these things, and it impacts the mental health of teachers. For them to have to deal with these issues, and they're leaving the field, rightfully so, to focus on their mental health. Um, you know, it's it's so many layers.
Yeah.
It's so many layers that are impacting the mental health of teachers. I want to ask you to repeat your question because I had a rush of so many thoughts.
No, that's fine. So it's just how mental health, like talking about mental health and its impact on retention of teachers. Do you feel like maybe if schools provided more support for the teachers, that would kind of help with them remaining, in the school system, in additional resources, maybe that can assist in, teachers wanting to stay teachers because I know they have the passion, but they don't have the support of, administration and things like that. That will kind of make you not want to be in the field no more and kind of go somewhere else.
Yeah, you're right. And I think the layers of support are greater than a Gene Day. Now, I love a good Gene Day. Like, there are teachers who believe they're like, oh, a Gene Day. And they want to toss it to the side.
Yeah.
But, I love a good Gene Day. And so that's always a great thing. But I've seen buildings really approach this in a very set of ways. There's some divisions that do those mental health days. And I've heard a lot of good feedback from teachers about that's needed. Some divisions across the nation, they do year-round school.
Right.
And those long breaks are really excellent for teachers and their mental health. I've also seen some things in practice that I didn't really think would be beneficial to educators, but things like a stationary bike in the teacher's lounge.
Yeah.
I was in several buildings where something small like lotion and aromatherapy and just making that room a comfortable space. As soon as you walk in and smell that eucalyptus,
I love you.
Yes. And you really don't realize its impact until you feel it unexpectedly. So those warm spaces have made a difference. And we talk about increasing salary and things like that, but I honestly think like simply increasing health benefits, just making teachers aware of benefits that are available to them, things that they can participate in through their health savings account. You can use your gym membership in your health savings account. You can go to your massage therapist or your chiropractor using those health savings benefits. And I've seen some schools that have counselors and therapists for teachers on campus in the teacher's workroom where they can come and go as they please, schedule appointments, or if they're dealing with something during the day, they can come and kind of debrief and then get back to teaching. And that's needed.
Absolutely.
It's so needed for teachers to be able to talk about these things because I tell a lot of my staff, it's kind of a give and take, but as educators, we're participants in our students' lives.
Yeah.
And then it compounds from our students' lives to their families' lives. You can't control those things. You can't go in and fix these things for your students, as no matter how loving you are, how much you want to try. And that's hard. It's really hard to deal with and weigh on your shoulders. And teachers need an outlet for those things. And for things that are happening to their colleagues, they need an outlet for that as well, to be able to talk about it and get it off their chest.
Yeah, that was very insightful. I didn't know like some of the schools were implementing things like that, which is really, really good. So we're going to kind of switch gears a little bit and kind of touch on gun violence, which we have seen is increasing all over the United States. So how does that add like another layer and affect the educators?
Well, as as a servant, as a civil servant, you should not have to go to work and fear that someone's going to come attack you in your place of work, particularly in the schoolhouse where you service minors. We're sitting ducks in a school. We can have lots of security, but it's really challenging to protect children. Kids will be kids. Kids like to play. They don't understand the dangers that are out there that can impact them. Human trafficking is real. Drugs are real, and sometimes they're closer in our communities than we think.
Absolutely.
And protecting our children from these things is a tall task. And just adding that onto all of the additional things, having these drills, and and our students are bringing weapons to school. I mean, just being able to wrap your mind around the simple fact that a child in early elementary can have just the thought pattern to harm someone who's educating them is just beyond my mental scope. It's crazy. When gun violence is real, and in the United States, we're quick to draw a gun.
Mm-hmm.
And that's very scary. And it's very, very scary. But when it crosses the line to our children who are innocent bystanders, and our educators who are not being paid to live in that type of hostile environment,
Right.
to be able to work in such a dangerous environment, they shouldn't have to be able to deal with those things and be fearful of losing their life at work and not going home to their family for dinner,
Right.
because an angry member of the community or a member of the community with a mental illness decided that they would put their hands on a weapon and do harm to someone else in their community.
Right. And I noticed, so I have a brother that is in elementary school, and we get notifications all the time of them doing drills. I know that I want to say they're starting to dabble or think about metal detectors. That's not foreign to me. I grew up in New Jersey, and in my high school, we had metal detectors. It was a norm. It was like that was our everyday to go through a metal
How did that
detector.
make you feel? Or as you reflect on it as an adult?
As an adult, to me, I think as a child or in high school, we were just like, we live in an urban community. It's gun violence. Hey, it makes sense. We would go through the metal detectors. It really got more intense when it was a shooting in the area. That's when they did a thorough search, and we had the wands and things like that. But growing up, I would tell people like, yeah, we had metal detectors in my school. We had a daycare in my school, and they're looking at me like, what are you talking about? And I thought it was normal. I'm thinking it's normal. And as I grew up, I'm like, that's not normal to have those things in the school. And I don't know how it's going to go now in these days. I think like we had the 6-year-old that shot his teacher. We had the little high schooler that shot his classmate. Not so long ago, it was just sentenced, to his time. And it's just growing up in me that it seemed normal, but now as an adult, I'm like that was not normal. And I don't, not to say that gun violence didn't happen, because it did happen when I was in school, but it's such an increase. Like the access is more nowadays, because I can't imagine a 6-year-old putting a gun in his backpack and just going into school and shooting his teacher. So I can imagine how that affects everyone. And teachers aren't equipped to know how to lock a door, or a desk really isn't going to do too much against an assault rifle.
Yeah.
And I think the expectation is like they have to, put themselves in danger, and a lot of teachers have put themselves in the front of a bullet to save children.
Absolutely.
So they're heroes, but at the same time, we don't have enough counselors in school that's going to be able
to manage that type of
you know what I'm saying?
Devastation. And teacher pay. We're not paying them to do this role. That's not what they're licensed to do. They're not licensed militia to protect our children.
Right.
They're licensed educators. Their pedagogy is in instruction and the theory of learning and developmental science. Like it's not bunkering down and protecting in state of active shooters with assault rifles. It's all out war, and it's unfortunate, and it's even scarier as a Black community with our relationships with police officers and law enforcement, to have that increased presence in schoolhouses that makes you even more anxious. And not everyone realizes that added layer of anxiety. You don't know whether they're there to protect you or harm you.
Yeah, I could definitely agree. Again, in my high school, we had police officers that had an office in our school. And it was normal. Again, it was normal. Like, I didn't think nothing of it till talking to other people from other areas, and they're like, I'm not familiar with that. Like, we just went to school, and I'm like, yeah, aside from the security, yeah. They're like, no, and I'm like, oh, okay, well, maybe where I'm from, a small little city, but it's just crazy how we have to. That's another added level of stress, especially because you never know, is it going to be my child's school today?
You never know, and we're not immune to these things, and it's just disheartening, and it's very scary as a parent or just any family member to be fearful to send your child to school. And it's wild to think that, this type of problem exists, and in other places people are afraid to send their children to school for other reasons, not necessarily that they'll be shot by a peer or a member of the community, but just it just makes my heart hurt, and it just makes my heart sad to know that just that layer of fear. It's intense.
So yeah, and I can imagine. Of course, you have active shooters, and it's all on the news. It's on TikTok, and that's the thing that the kids are on. It's on TikTok. So how do you feel like schools are handling the mental health aspect of it when it comes to dealing with, okay, there's been a shooting in the community? How do we reassure the students that they're safe with us?
That's an excellent question. I think school divisions and educators are doing the best that they can with the capacity in which they have to operate with. Unfortunately, that capacity is not what's needed. We're not supplying our education system with the capacity to handle the mental health needs of our students. Before the pandemic, during the pandemic, before this sharp increase in gun violence, counselors are hard to come by. There's a staffing shortage across the board in education. It's very real. It's critical. We don't have subs to fill in vacancies. We don't even have warm bodies to fill the role of a licensed practitioner. And that's what's scary. We're just trying to put a warm body in this space for supervision, but that's not what we're here to do in education. We're not here to supervise the children of the populations we serve. We're here to educate them. And so the shortage of teachers, the shortage of counselors, that shortage of support. Some buildings have one, maybe two counselors for an entire building of hundreds of students. It just doesn't make sense with the capacity. And, just thinking about our students with disabilities in addition who need those supports and families who need supports. It's just, we need more counselors, which is great. We're seeing more people. We're seeing more African Americans come into counseling, which is fantastic. And unfortunately, it's just not happening fast enough. That supply and demand kind of tug and pull there is needed.
And of course, this is another conversation that can continue going on. Of course, we gotta wrap. So, what is one key thing that you want the listeners and the viewers to take away from being an educator in mental health in that whole realm? What's one thing that you want them to know?
Mental health impacts all the layers of the ecosystem, particularly in the educational space. So we're think about your teachers. Check on your teachers. Think about your students, the students in your household, the students that you interact with, because again, it takes a village for a school system to be successful, no matter what circumstance your community is in. It takes a village, and it takes all of us to cooperate and support each other and help each other. So when you see something, say something. If you see a teacher needs help, say something, give them help. Be involved in your school if you can. If they ask for help, they're not asking just to throw sprinkles in the air. They're asking because it's a true need. They need someone to watch the bouncy house while tutoring is happening. They need you to bring their child to tutoring, ready to learn. Bring your kid to school, ready to learn. Thinking about not pulling your child out during testing when we're trying to be accredited by the state. You want to be collaborative and keep the doors open. Just if you can communicate with your school, they'll tell you what the needs are, and you'll also see needs, particularly in the areas of mental health, to help everyone have a happy, healthy school year.
All right, well, thank you for taking the time to speak with me.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Thanks for having me. This was so great. You're an excellent host.
Thank you. You are too. Like, I really think you were